We go now to Mitch McConnell, the majority leader of the Senate, an article by Alex Burns and Jonathan Martin in the New York Times, talking about what is going on behind the scenes in the Senate, how McConnell and the president have been fuming at each other, both directly and out of each other's earshot. It's fascinating political stuff because a lot of what has to happen for the president to be able to, quote unquote, do well is to get some of these things like tax cuts and infrastructure passed in some way. And McConnell does not like what the president's doing to some of his colleagues. This is Mitch McConnell saying President Trump, or this is the article, President Trump and Senator Mitch McConnell have not spoken to each other in weeks. And McConnell has privately expressed uncertainty that Mr. Trump will be able to salvage his administration after a series of summer crises. And I think it's important that we talk about Mitch McConnell saying this, because Mitch McConnell has for a long time been someone who is saying, stay the course, everything's gonna be all right, we're on the same page, we wanna get the same things done. But now he's saying he doesn't see this president perhaps making it work.
Yeah, this is definitely something way more significant than we've had before, where you've got not just one particular Republican senator. So McCain never liked him, Lindsey Graham never liked him, except when he's declaring war. They're like, right. Yes, yeah. Right? But Mitch McConnell just wants to get to the tax cuts already, right? Yeah. He just wants to be able to get some policy wins for his donors. So for him to talk about how the Republican president might not make it to the end, that's amazing. Now, it's only not amazing because it's Trump, but for it to have happened to any other president would be unbelievable. It'd be the biggest news story there was maybe in their entire term. If their own majority leader turned on him and thought you shouldn't finish the term. Imagine if Harry Reid said that about Obama. I mean, oh my God.
These things aren't said. I mean, that Mitch McConnell in his position of power, Nomi, is saying these things. It's unprecedented so far in these 8 months that we've had this president.
I guess my question is, okay, great, and what leverage do you have against Trump? Because if they block anything, it just helps the Democrats, which are at their weakest point since 1929, and then it hurts their reelection. They're in this stuck, they're just stuck in this position, just as the centrist Democrats, I think, are as well. Because if they side with the centrist Republicans,
here's the thing, I think what it does is that it's, every kind of drip of away from Trump, drip, probably not the right sort of example, but I'm just saying that anytime you see a weakening of this president and his standing on Capitol Hill, it hurts him, exponentially now that Mitch McConnell says this. What's going to happen is probably nothing, because as Cenk told us before, and he'll tell us now, Mitch McConnell is not going to do anything about this. He wants to get things passed. He's still a conservative Republican. What did he say, Cenk, that you were telling us?
So he after the New York Times story came out and it became huge news, he then put out a statement, McConnell did, saying, no, the president and I are working towards our shared goals. And he talked about fighting ISIS and tax reform. So in other words, we both really want those tax cuts. Okay. Yeah. Now, having said that, he's totally full of crap. Of course not. This story is true. It's well sourced. I mean, and it has incredible details, including that when they were on the phone on August 9th, it became they started cursing at each other and yelling at each other. I don't know McConnell in person. All I've ever seen him is obviously on camera. But he doesn't seem like much of a yeller, more of a, retreating into his shell, the turtle that he is. But if you've got McConnell cursing at the president, I don't know if it was back and forth on the cursing and shouting back and forth. That's amazing.
And then on August 10th at 3:54 in the morning, this is the day after, or the very early morning after, Trump tweets, this is TA7, Trump tweets, can you believe that Mitch McConnell, who screamed repeal and replace for 7 years, couldn't get it done? Must repeal and replace Obamacare. So he called them out after whatever their screaming match was. And let's just go on into the article a little bit more. McConnell has fumed over Mr. Trump's regular threats against fellow Republicans and criticism of Senate rules, and questioned Mr. Trump's understanding of the presidency in a public speech. Mr. McConnell has made sharper comments in private describing Mr. Trump as entirely unwilling to learn the basics of governing. So this is all about Dean Heller, and it's about the senator from Nevada. It's about Jeff Flake. It's about the president publicly calling out his colleagues. Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, said, hey, we have Article 5 here, an allusion to the NATO rules where you attack one of us, you attack all of us, certainly within that caucus. That is really probably one of the things that's setting McConnell off.
And my theory is that the only people that it benefits at this point, and I'll get to the Democrats in a second, for impeachment is the centrist Republicans that are in power, because they need their tax cuts no matter what. And Trump is, who knows if he can get it through, if he's going to actually be able to rally this stuff. It's 50-50 for them. But for the Democrats, either way they lose. You impeach Trump, you still get these tax cuts, you still get the Republicans in power. And by the way, they're going to be more effective at getting all the proposals through if we don't win in the midterms, which my guess is we probably won't, because we have no Democratic Party. So the Democrats are screwed no matter what. They've got Trump and his fascism, and then they've got Pence and his Republican agenda just sweeping through easily.
So let's break down McConnell versus Trump, what their different priorities are. So Michael mentioned why McConnell's pissed because he's attacking his fellow Republicans. He's also attacking McConnell over and over, and it's a great point. I hadn't remembered that it was the day after the call that he tweeted that angry tweet about McConnell. And McConnell's also worried about, hey, look, we got to raise the debt ceiling. We have to do just like elementary stuff. And this guy is so stupid that we might not even be able to execute the most elementary stuff because he doesn't know how to govern. He doesn't know anything. Look, remember that Trump was in a meeting with the Senate Republicans when somebody was talking about the tax cuts within the repeal of Obamacare. And he's like, no, tax cuts are later. They're like, no, Mr. President, that's a different bill. Within this bill are also tax cuts. He's like, no, they're not. And they're like, oh my God, he doesn't know anything.
He was shocked.
He doesn't know anything.
What he didn't know about that healthcare bill.
Yes, he's never, of course he hasn't read it. He hasn't read a summary of it. He hasn't read any of it.
He doesn't take briefings.
Yeah.
Willfully and openly does not take briefings.
Now, so that's why McConnell's upset, because this is an absolute disaster, both for the Republican Party and legislatively. I mean, they can't get anything done. The reason Trump's upset, sure, it's embarrassing that they couldn't repeal Obamacare even though he promised it, etc. But no. As the New York Times points out, he was even more animated about what he intimated was the Senate leader's refusal to protect him from investigations of Russian interference in the 2016 election. That's why Trump's mad. He's like, hey, your job is to protect me. And McConnell's like, no, it's not. That's not my job.
Jim Comey got fired for that, right? I mean, for not protecting the president against it.
And McConnell, look, as a fairly unethical, I've never seen McConnell care about ethics before in my life, as a guy who cares only about winning and politics and who will brazenly switch sides. Filibuster is terrible, the filibuster is great, on and on and on, right? That guy would protect you normally if you were a normal president and you were trying to get things, but he's not going to protect you from a criminal investigation where he would then be culpable. Besides which, how the hell would he even protect you from that? Like, so again, Trump not understanding, McConnell doesn't have anything to do with a special counsel, but he's like, why don't you protect me? And by the way, guys, how guilty is he? He's yelling at everybody, why don't you protect me? Why don't you protect me? For what? If you didn't do anything, why are you so incredibly panicked that you're pulling people over from the side of the road going, why won't you protect me from the Russian investigation?
Yeah.
And if you look at his support among members that supported him early on, they're not out there campaigning for him, they're silent.
Well, that's what's I think a month off in August gets you. You're back in your district and people are starting to say, "Whoa, what's?" Even Republicans are saying that they're back home in their districts and they're getting earfuls from their constituents.
Yeah. So last thing on this is what's also really, really important. There are no winners here, except hopefully progressives and the rest of the country eventually.
In like 10 years.
Right.
Just stay tuned.
But between these two sides, first of all, when Trump loses all the Senate Republicans, as he's in the middle of losing, and nobody protected you from the Russian investigation, and they found real stuff on you, those Senate Republicans are the ones that are going to walk over to the White House and go, "You're done, son."
Yeah.
Right. So, especially if you know you did it, as Trump knows, obviously based on his reactions, right? You idiot! You should be trying to work with those Senate Republicans at all costs. They're your last line of defense. You haven't gotten to that yet. Like right now, there's nothing McConnell can do. Later, there's a lot McConnell can do. Right? So antagonizing him today is so monumentally stupid. Thank God for that. Now, on McConnell's side, oh my God, his approval ratings are so abysmal. They're destroyed. Trump ruined them. So in Kentucky, he's down to 18% approval, and Trump's at 60%. Holy cow, he's more than tripling him. So the disapproval for McConnell in Kentucky is 74%. I've never seen numbers like this for a majority leader.
When Congress has an 8%, that number is unbelievable. When Congress has an 8% approval rating, and the second biggest leader in Congress is out there, and his approval rating is not going to be much better than that. And
but
that's
they're
what's
very
happening.
popular in their own districts, and if he's not popular in his own
state, in his own
right.
no, for sure. I'm just saying in general, the president is more popular than the people he's picking on in this case, and that's within the party.
When Donald Trump is impeached, is it legal for him to go run for Senate in Kentucky? No?
Well, he could get Mrs. Mnuchin to campaign for him down there. That would be easy.
Oh yes, with their bags.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, look, when these guys are up for re-election and Trump has turned their own base against them, they're in for a world of hurt. And it is because of Trump, because Rand Paul is at 39% in the same state, and he's mainly kept out of the spotlight. And Trump has not attacked Rand Paul, he's attacked McConnell. So it's mainly because of Trump's attacks that McConnell's numbers are so damn low. And I don't know that you can recover from an 18% approval rating. So there's an excellent chance that Trump walked in the building, blew the place up, and the Republican senators will lose, and so will Trump. So like I said, there's no winners in that fight except the American people. Eventually.
Watch the Young Turks commercial-free, download it or stream it, watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.